Hey, welcome to Taylor's Trick Taking Tale. I'm Taylor, and I forgot to do a comparison between Voodoo Prince and Marshmallow Test. And I don't have Marshmallow Test with me right now, but we'll do a quick comparison. I'll just put up kind of pictures over here, and we'll go down this bulleted list for kind of pros and cons, which side is better. For art and theme, I think you could tell if you prefer one or the other, and I think I'll just go straight to production, where these cards are much better than the Marshmallow Test cards, but I do genuinely like how Marshmallow Test has the small marshmallows and the big marshmallows for keeping score. I think it's a nice, cute little touch. With that out of the way, let's talk about the powers. So the power cards are gone in Marshmallow Test. These are kind of what they look like in Voodoo Prince. And there's two categories of them. There's the 5s and the 7s, which break up the trick into 2 tricks. They split the trick. And then the 0s, which beat the highest of their respective suit. So the 0 in blue will be the highest number in blue. And they're just gone in Marshmallow Test. I think it's kind of a good and bad thing. The splitting tricks, I never found really happened. It maybe happened once or twice, but the 5s and the 7s are so low that they would really only happen with the 5s and the 7s of trump, when someone was trumping in and they would win with the 5 or 7. And it was usually done strategically, because if you're trumping in to try to win on trump, you're kind of trying to go for that if you play the 5 or the 7. So it gave a little bit of choice, but the fact that it never really happened, I don't mind that it's gone in Marshmallow Test. I do generally think it's a little bit of an obtuse rule to kind of explain to newcomers, and I don't know if even advanced players even used it that much. It's cool to have it for availability, so if the rules teach doesn't need to be simple, I don't mind it in Voodoo Prince, but yeah, not used too often. But the 0s, oh my gosh, huge. I think it adds so much to the fact that you're never secure in leading with the strongest card. So these are gone in Marshmallow Test as well. And when you play Marshmallow Test, you can just lead with the highest of a suit, and there's less tension there, especially if you have the highest of trump. And I'll get to this a little later, but there's no cards really cut out at 5 in Marshmallow Test, so it becomes a little bit more mathematical. And the fact that the 0 isn't in the game, it gets a little bit too simple sometimes with that power gone. But I'll kind of get more into that again when we talk about deck makeup. So the deck makeup in Voodoo Prince is on this chart here, which I'll enlarge there, but it's variable. It depends on the number of players. And I like that it scales like that. At lower player counts, there's just a ton cut out though, so I don't know if it matters a great deal. But what I like about Voodoo Prince at 5 is there's 14 card hands, and the cards go 0 to 15, so I think it's just the right amount cut out. But at Marshmallow Test at 5, there's no cards cut out, it's just 60, and everyone gets 12. So it's interesting that there's perfect information in a game that's meant to be a little more simpler, as opposed to Voodoo Prince. I think perfect information games are interesting. I think they have to fit the game correctly, though. In a game that's kind of about push your luck and needs to be a little bit lighter, possibly good for newcomers, perfect information, I think, is the wrong step. So it's kind of bizarre that they did that in Marshmallow Test. So I like the deck makeup a little bit more in Voodoo Prince. And I'm sure they did that deck makeup because it's super simple that there's always 12 cards in everyone's hand, no matter the player count. It makes for setup and probably just starting to play the game quicker. But not only is the perfect information tough at 5, but also at 5 they have the special rule that I'll include over here, where it leads to the possibility of the game ending where there's actually 2 people left after 2 tricks. They don't have their 3 tricks to get out. And there's this whole paragraph, and it just leads to a lot of weird rule complexity that they could have gone around with if just they kept how Voodoo Prince did the cards, or if they made it just a bigger deck and did 14 card hands no matter what. So it's a little bizarre that the choices to maybe simplify the game for maybe setup or start of play kind of lead to some weird, bizarre like paragraph like this that's almost like antithetical, the antithesis of simplicity. Speaking of the bizarre kind of choices to be opposite of simple, they decided to include a new rule where if a player is unable to follow suit and they play a trump card, then the subsequent players may also play a trump card even if they had cards of the lead suit. This blows my mind. I don't think I've genuinely seen a game that's trying to be simpler, but that includes a really obtuse rule. It kind of added some interesting moments to give players flexibility that maybe was needed because the hand size of 12 was a little bit restricting. But it's just weird that they would add this rule when, in general, I see Marshmallow Test as the game that's meant to be simpler. It's meant to be for families or younger people. And to have like the special rule at 5 and then this specific rule for Trump and how Trump can be played after it's like broken in a trick, it just seems bizarre. It seems at odds with what Marshmallow Test is going for. So in the end, I think kind of everything gameplay-wise, besides the splitting powers, kind of goes to Voodoo Prince, and I don't see kind of a logical reason for a lot of the changes of Marshmallow Test. And the last thing is the scoring. And in Voodoo Prince, it's 5 rounds no matter what player count, which is kind of interesting. But in Marshmallow Test, it's first player to 20 or more points, and that immediately ends the round. So I personally like the tension of the scoring in Marshmallow Test, but I've noticed it leads to a little bit longer games. The shortest it could happen is, at 5, where someone gets out at the end, or second to last, 2 or 3 games in a row. So they'd last 3 games. But usually it lasts maybe more than 5, especially because since it is a race, people are trying really hard to not let that person who's winning be one of the people who gets out. And it's kind of strange because that person kind of just gets out really early, so it kind of changes the whole flow of the game. I kind of like the standardness of 5, but maybe that's my kind of, play hands per player traditional sense of the stodgy trick taker in me. So I kind of waffle on it. I think it definitely has different vibes to the game. But what's interesting is you could just play that way with either copy. So maybe like a variant rule for whichever one you buy. So that is the quick comparison here. And honestly, you could Frankenstein any rules you get from both games. I think it'd be tough with Marshmallow Tests because the deck just isn't there. So in theory, you could buy Voodoo Prince and then just use Marshmallow Test rules and ignore certain symbols. That's probably maybe the best way to go about it if you do want to have like a Frankenstein house rule version of it. But yeah, overall, I think they're both great games, so can't go wrong. Thanks for watching.